Hey everyone! This is part 2 of 6 of monthly updates on Xenoblade Chronicles 3, so if you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend doing so before coming here, as the introduction to each of these updates will connect in some way to the previous video. Click the time card in the corner of the screen, or the link to the previous part will be linked in the description box down below. With that said, let's press on!
And on and on!
Hey guys, Luxker here. Another month down and 5 more months to go. Let's see if we got any new Xenoblade 3 news this month. Oh, I should have expected much. Well, I guess it's time for Plan B. Something to at least talk about for a period. What was it? Because not only do these characters bear a lot of importance to the series, but to how they develop into these characters from the previous games. We all know what they are, but their mask tells them otherwise. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about them in the previous video. I probably should get back on that because they are very important to the series in general, as they are indeed returning characters. Not really confirmed, but judging from the voice acting and design of these characters, clearly these are characters that we know from previous games. And I want to analyze and theorize their depictions in the trailer to see what we can glimpse on from details from the previous Xenoblade games, as well as what could possibly be their role in becoming the leader of their own nation, fighting each other from who knows what, and what secrets they have under their sleeve. For this video, I wanted to talk about the possible leader of Keves, Melia, since she is one of my favorite Xenoblade characters, and I know a lot about her already. I feel Melia is the perfect start to what I want to discuss. As per usual with these videos, there are going to be spoilers for the Xenoblade series, in particular talking about Xenoblade 1 and Future Connected more closely, as well as discussing some lore bits from the Xeno series as a whole. Also, if you like these videos and want to see more, please like this video and subscribe for more content. With that said, let's get on to it. Oh my god!
Aaron's just too busy.
Before I get into Melia's depiction in Xenoblade 3, we first must look at the details shown in Future Connected, because it serves as a prologue of sorts to what might happen with Melia, and basically the whole plot of Xenoblade 3, possibly. Here, Melia lands on the Bionis' shoulder with Shulk to find if there is any life still living on there. While arriving to the shoulder, they find Alchemoth, Melia's previous home, floating right next to the shoulder, following a strange beam being shot out from Alchemoth and hitting Junks, which forces Shulk to make an impromptu landing on the shoulder. While figuring out how to repair Junks after the crash, Melia discovers half-blooded Hyantia living in the village close to the landing site, one of which includes Maxis, and Melia talks to him about why they are living there in the first place. From here, Melia learns a lot of revelations. How Alchemoth was seemingly taken over by a distorted-looking beast called the Fog King, realizing the Fog King is way too powerful to stop from their ether attacks just going right through it, so they fled the capital. The Machina arriving on Bionis and living amongst Hyantia and Grandel, a village on the other side of the shoulder, how the Hyantia left Grandel because of their responsibility for the war that took many of the Bionis' lives, even though it was more or less for the good of everyone in the end. Melia of course is shocked by this, but somehow doesn't really know an answer to their problem besides going to Alchemoth and seeing for herself. Melia soon after reaches Alchemoth to find Tielan being confronted by a fog beast, a creature with dark circular particles. This may be a stretch, but these particles are very similar to the white-colored particles when Noah or Mio play their flutes to honor their deceased comrades. What I find this interesting is that these white particles appear very prominently on Xenoblade 3's logo, which, anything that has prominence in Xenoblade logos, such as the fire from Pyra in Xenoblade 2's logo, or the rusty-looking painted metal texture on Xenoblade 1's logo, bear very important roles to the story. My theory is that the black and white particles' similarities could mean a return of the Fog Beast in Xenoblade 3, We've seen in some parts in the trailer spirals of fog swirling around in the background. Maybe that's where fog beasts appear, and you have to make use of the white particles in order to beat them. But what fog beast coming back in 3 implies though is something related to what Melia says in the announcement trailer, which we will get to later on. Melia and the gang retreat Alchemoth after finding what the Fog King is capable of. Just like Max has said, the Fog King is impervious to incoming ether attacks. Soon after, Melia encounters Tyrea, who in fact was helping Telan with his research on Telethia. The gang already knows Telethia were prevalent around the shoulder, but they didn't see why the Telethia were floating around Alchemoth. It turns out that a Telethia's ether field counteracts the rift in the sky, where Fog Beasts and the Fog King came from, balancing themselves out and preventing the rift to do further destruction. We find out when the gang reaches Telan's research hut that the secret to the Telethia's ether field and how it's able to restrain back Fog Beast's power can be a clue as to figuring out how to defeat the real enemy, just like the Vandham of Xenoblade 3 explained in the announcement trailer. Or when Melia called it the salvation of her people. Remember that word for later. For now, let's talk about the Machina living in Grandel now, whom the Hyantia from Companion's Cape rejected because of their beliefs on how to stop the Fog King, while in fact seem to really pull their weight by raising livestock and growing food outside of their village, but provided more advice as to what they need to beat the Fog King, which essentially is powering up their weapons. Okay, I know that sounds a little bit boring, but hear me out on this. Machina were responsible for Shulk's replica Monado being made for him to fight back against Sansa, which evolves from the Monado replica EX in Future Connected based on the original prototype. Since Machina technology by the time the replica Monado was already so advanced, it's interesting how after 1 year, the technology continued to become more powerful, to the point that Shulk was able to understand it and use the power almost like how Sansa was controlling Shulk's body and using the Monado within. Just by having a replica and a belt full of Machina technology. Oh wait, the Keves soldiers as well as Noah, Lance, and Uni all have that same belt that was made by Shulk to use his replica Monado. They were all developed from that same advanced Machina technology that was given to Shulk right after his original Monado was taken by Sansa. You know who else Machina technology has taken over their entire performance in battle? That's right, it's Melia! The World Ender staff she uses in Future Connected is very similar to the replica Monado technology Shulk developed, and it's implied that Shulk gave it to her as a gift. We can see the Mechanis insignia on the staff that was indeed made using the advanced technology of the Machina, or in this case, it was developed by Machina using Shulk's guidance to create the staff. But you know what else? I believe that technology was so highly advanced that it gave so much influence on Melia in Xenoblade 3. The first trailer showed Sena running through a machine-like town that is assumed to be the capital of Keves. Wouldn't you know it? But the Mechanis insignia is on one of the buildings in the town. It would seem weird that the architects of the town would remember a long-lost civilization that they called home. I mean, Machina can live thousands of years, living in a civilization that is not separate from their original Titan. Or perhaps that was intended? Also, why not put the insignia of Keves on there instead of the Mechanis one? It all goes back to Melia. The Machina, Mechanis, and the technology had such a profound impact on her development as a leader of a nation because of how much aid it brought to her and the people she rules under. That ruling Keves under advanced Machina technology is the next step in the process. So yeah, powering up weapons using fine ether crystals is definitely what makes Shulk and Melia's weapons stronger, it seems. Let's talk about what Future Connected implies for a little bit before we move on to the Fog King. Melia's World Ender description says it's a staff that presages the end of an old age and heralds a new one. We don't see her use this staff in Xenoblade 3, but just from this text alone shows us that the events transpiring in Future Connected, taking back Alchemoth from the rift by forming an alliance between the two nations, who once had disagreements with each other, all under one ruler that uses machina technology to take back what is rightfully hers and to her people, without knowing what the new threat really is, and what it could mean for the new world. This is what Melia fears about regarding the rift.
Disaster. Complete ruin. Inescapably looming over our future.
I feel like in that moment, that Melia, standing tall in the trailer, is what she is up against right now. Perhaps how will it impact her role as a leader? Throughout Future Connected, Melia experiences what must become of her as a leader, and how she finds out her strength from not only her comrades, but from being the hope for her people, or to be the light of the world, so to speak. Now here's where I put on my Xenoblade Gnosticism thinking cap, because there is a lot we can discuss in relation to becoming the light of the world. Throughout the story of Xenoblade 1, we see countless times Melia being described as the light of the world, or a glimmer of light in the darkness. From Alvis seeing a glimmer of light in his visions and Saurian believing this light to be Melia, to when she steps into the blinding light onto the Alchemoth balcony to welcome her world as a new leader. Light is the symbol associated with her. Gnosticism is all about bringing humanity back to the light, or the pleroma. Melia in Future Connected is pretty much the physical manifestation of the pleroma, which is to bring her people out of the darkness. And as the Mandaeans believed, that any human soul will achieve salvation because it originates from the world of light. And now let's talk about the Fog King, or should we say, the darkness of the world, seeking complete destruction of their respective universe. The real enemy of Future Connected, the Fog King, is actually a manifestation of the Gnosis from Xenosaga. Both are invulnerable without force that blocks them, like the Hilbert effect and the Telethia's ether field, and how it corrupts them on direct contact. Going back to Gnosticism, the Manichaeists believed in the anima mundi, the connection between living beings and the world around them, which also is called the light soul, and when contrasted with any matter associated with death and lifelessness, the anima mundi would become imprisoned, or when going back to Xenoblade, to cause a disruption to the fabric of this new world and everyone living within it. We go back to the fight with the Fog King. Melia and the group struggled to take it down, even with their powered up machina weapons, until we see this.
What? Telethia? Why? What? What on Bionis?
The Telethia are the anti-Gnosis, even as them being tools of destruction, even with the dissipating ether field. Their power is what still brings salvation to Melia and the rest of the group. The moves Telethia uses, such as Burst Animus and Soul Read, are examples of anti-Gnosis power, with the first move blocking and binding the rift, and the latter evading every incoming attack, with the unstable rift above becoming a massive threat for the Fog King. The Telethia's explosions were what stopped the rift from expanding. In fact, with the Fog Beast and the Fog King, or perhaps multiple Fog Kings, returning in Xenoblade 3, Telethia are going to be very important to Xenoblade 3's main conflict of taking down the real enemy. Okay, we are finally done talking about Future Connected, but we'll come back to it in just a second. First, I want to talk about Melia's depiction shown off in the Xenoblade 3 trailer. The most obvious being that she is wearing a mask with blue eyebrows, eyeshadow, and lips, with the mask pattern of lines intersecting each other. In case anyone is wondering, the mask clearly isn't the same as the one Melia wears during the trial at the Hyentia tomb, nor is it a mask worn by the Bionite Order. Rather, it's a completely new mask that designates her as a royalty of Keves. Although I'm not quite sure if it's proof that she's a leader or part of some sort of nobility. My guess that she is the leader of Keves, because why wouldn't Future Connected build her up to become a leader of an ever-growing nation in the first place? But what I'm more curious about is the blue on these parts of the mask. The blue lipstick comes from her artwork for the Wii version of Xenoblade 1, but what has me interested is why her eyeshadow or eyebrows are blue. Maybe it can be related to her blue eyes, but I feel like it is much more than that. Moving on to her dress, it is just all black, which signifies what Keves soldiers wear in battle, though I feel like that there's a lot more to this color to Melia, instead of it just being what the common color of Keves would be. It could mean that something could have happened during her time as tenure, like the death of her comrades, the soldiers that die in battle, or it can be her suffering coming back to bite her. One of her anemone-style outfits is black, so it could also be a reference, or just a slight bit of foreshadowing of what is to come. Also, I wish I said something in the reaction video, but Melia has long hair in Xenoblade 3! Yup, I called it, everyone. Melia has long hair all along until now. All braided up on the top of her head, but now her hair is down now, since it's possibly a century after the events of Future Connected, and her hair grew so long that it would take a long time to braid and keep it on her head, and... Okay, I probably should get back on task now. Other than the more obvious traits, there's really not much to go off of Melia's design that we can glean from past games. There's blue wings on the upper part of her arm, the necklace has a shape that I can't seem to picture where it could be from. Although, according to Shalvis Dragon on Twitter, they discovered that the shape could resemble the Trinity symbol that is used all over Xenoblade 1, but it's hard to tell considering the quality of the image. Same with the shape on top of her mask, but Shalvis Dragon assumes this to be based on the true Minato, as well as the pattern on her dress which resembles the shape of Alchemoth. Although this could be a coincidence. Hopefully in due time we can figure out what these shapes really are, or I can make an addendum in the comments to the video, but if I have to guess, it could be just some insignias from Keves that we don't seem to know much about. Finally, I want to discuss what Melia says in this trailer in full detail, because it gives us a great clue as what our main characters in Xenoblade 3 are up against. Or for if you want to put it that way. She says,
Ouroboros Abhor this world.
What does this exactly mean? In fact, it has a lot of meaning if we tie things we know from Future Connected, Gnosticism, and what we know from the rest of the Xeno series. Let's break down each word one by one. Ouroboros, represented by the snake eating its own tail and creating a circle around it. It means a lot of things in many cultures, such as wholeness or having infinite possibilities. But what it commonly represents, shown in the Xeno series, is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Similar how the passage of fate works in Xenoblade 1, or how a blade's life cycle works in Xenoblade 2. In Gnosticism, the Ouroboros is recognized as a symbol for eternal return, or the soul of the world. The eternal return is something that Xenoblade has touched on as previously mentioned, but I want to go a step further regarding the plot of Xenoblade 3. Two nations have been in a constant war that seems like it will never end. They have colonized new territories within this new world, invented technologies that would outdo one another, and where humanity continues their eternal prosperity from conflict and war, all because that they have to exist. Life is the central theme to Xenoblade 3, and in Gnosticism, there's a chart known as ion pairs, which form male and female pairs called syzygies, which are separated from generations throughout a sequence presumed by the Gnostic theologian Valentinus. In the third generation, we see that Zoe represents life in this pair, and on the other end of the pair is the Word of God, or Logos. Yes, that Logos. I believe he will make a return as well, and represent what life will eventually come to, and makes the ion pair complete, but ultimately leads the world into chaos. Abhor, a word that describes hatred of something. In fact, it's a word that was used recently in Xenoblade with Future Connected, where Galgar explains how the rift in the sky is like how the world abhors you, as if the fog coming from the rift hates this world and wants to bring it back to the light, as previously mentioned. But why would Melia just reference the Ouroboros in this way? Well, that's the last part of what Melia says in the trailer. This world. From what we know so far about the new world, it has been in a state of war for a long time. Chaos brooming up as the world still fills itself with hatred. Although we already know that the Ouroboros is the soul of the world. But what happens if that moniker was taken away with more and more fog appearing in the world? Or if Logos suddenly appears and sinks the whole entire cycle into chaos? And this is what Keves' secret weapon is going to be. You see, all throughout the trailer, there are these clock-like circles that either are half full or full at many points. And when it's full, a symbol representing Ouroboros appears and makes the characters more powerful. People have theorized that this was the Ouroboros Melia has been referring to, and that is putting the world into chaos. But I don't think this is true. When their clocks have become whole in the trailer, it's usually when they are in a male and female pair, hence why Noah and Mio's circles are full when they are together, when the pair are amidst something greater than what could be possibly imagined. Perhaps the fog or Logos' influence during these battles will make the Ouroboros' power much more greater, and then suddenly, a Telethia appears. Though it's Melia's brethren and witches that they killed, Telethia will be the main force driving the real enemy back. It's the salvation she was looking for. It's to stop the threat of fog beasts and fog kings. It's to calm the ever-growing chaos in the world. It's to discover what the Telethia's true purpose of this world is, and to find closure and end the eternal suffering that everyone, even on the Agnes side, can even endure. Oh yeah, then there's Agnes, you know, what Keves is fighting against in this ever-impenetrable war. That is what is stopping Melia from achieving this goal. When she wants to stop chaos from forming, Agnes still has her own secret up their sleeve, but we'll get to that in the next video. And then there's the gang of Noah, Mio, Lance, Sena, Uni, and Tyon, finding out another way to defeat the real enemy, not just by fighting each other, but by blowing their flutes to bring out the white particles from all the deceased, against the black particles brought out by the fog. There's one part of the Ouroboros and Gnosticism that I haven't talked about yet, and that is this drawing from alchemical text. The writing in the middle in Greek are the words hen to pan, or the all is one. While it's drawn with black and white halves representing a duology of existence. Wait a moment. Keves black and Agnes white? The white particles coming from the deceased, and the black particles floating around fog beasts? Takahashi, you madman! To close out this update, I want to explain why I pronounce Keves as Kevesh and not Keves. This is the Hebrew word for Kevesh, and it can be pronounced with an SH sound and an S sound, but it's more commonly for this letter to be SH than S, which this letter is more commonly used for. Hopefully this will provide some understanding here. Next update, we'll hopefully get a little bit of Xenoblade 3 updates, instead of going too much into theory crafting, which is kind of what the next episode is gonna be about anyway. But hopefully you all have enjoyed this video, and want to see more of it like this one. Until next time everyone, see you on the other side! Oh yeah, almost forgot, Tyrea is going to be back in this next game, guys.